Hello, I'm Gary Pope. I work for Kids Industries, and this is a CMC Get In, Get On session, all about the kids media industry, who's who and how it works. So first of all, just a tiny bit about us. We make family brands stronger by bringing audiences to the table. And our business works around insight, strategy, and creative to solve all sorts of problems for kids media and FMCG brands. We're really lucky to work with all sorts of clients right around the world, from Disney to BBC through to Xbox, Snazaroo to face paint people, Lego, Kellogg's, McDonald's, all sorts. But I'm more proud to have worked with just about every character you can think of. Some of them we played a little part in developing, some of them we've made from scratch ourselves. Now, the thing about creating content for children is that no two children are the same. It's very easy to follow a path of age with children, and actually it doesn't really work that way because we all develop at slightly different paces. So the way that we approach this is to break the timeline from birth through to 18 down into 3 big chunks, each supported by a bunch of developmental insights and understanding. So this first one here at the far end there, me and my family, when a child is I don't know, 0 through to about 5, the first thing they do, they copy all the adults around them, and then they kind of put on different hats and role play at different things. And then finally they realize that they're their own little person and that they take control, and they kind of decide that they're going to be just who they're going to be. And then as they get a little bit older, maybe 5, 6, 7, actually peers start to become far more important. Their friends start to become far more important. They're not pushing away from parents just yet. Actually realizing that friendships are a very important part of their development. Go from what we call a tribal sharer, where they're sharing the things they like, through to a sort of confirmation of their own identity a little bit with what we call an identity explorer. And then by the time they're about 11, 12, they're kind of pretty sure what they are and what they like. And then actually not perhaps so relevant for our conversation today, but as they get older, 13, 14, 15, so that real adult starts to come through. Now, just as a little example where you can see the type of content and how that breaks down. For me and my family, it's the Teletubbies and Bluey. And me and my peers, it could be Barbie, but then actually it could be the Mandalorian as well. You all know the Mandalorian, I'm sure. And then at the far end there, as the kids get older and older, the sex education, and of course, characters like KSI and all those crazy things he does across all the platforms that he works on. So that's a very quick look at the audience, but how does this actual industry work? How does the ecosystem that we inhabit work? Well, still in the middle of it, there has to be a creator. There has to be somebody that has the idea for what this content's going to be. And then there's a whole bunch of different elements all around the outside that all interconnect to create this wonderful, wild world that we call kids media. So I'm going to talk you through this ecosystem bit by bit now. Now let's start with licensees. Now, these are the companies that pay a fee, both some up front, what they call a minimum guarantee, and an ongoing percentage royalty payment for the right to use imagery of an intellectual property. Some companies are manufacturers of toys like Mattel or Hasbro. Some make clothes. Next are a big licensee, for example. Some do food like Heinz, or they might make a theme park like Merlin, who own the Lego franchise. All these companies contribute to the revenue of the IP that was created in the world of children's entertainment. And it's really that money that actually goes to fund an awful lot of the creation. Now let's move on a little bit and talk about gaming platforms. I'm sure you're familiar with Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite, but increasingly anything with a creator mode is a gaming platform. You could argue the likes of Xbox Live is a gaming platform, although obviously it is a subscription service. And there's outliers as well, Apple Arcade, which is perhaps best described as an aggregator, but nonetheless, it's moving in new directions even as we speak. So let's move on to the bigger studios, the Warner Brothers, Disney, Universal, even BBC Studios and the wonderful Paramount. Whilst they make amazing movies and incredible TV shows, they also make great kids content. Gabby's Dollhouse, Bluey, SpongeBob, Batwheels. These huge organizations have massive consumer products businesses They take a really joined up 360-degree approach to what they do. If you were to enter perhaps one of these big studios, you might find there's a myriad of different roles that you could explore to take on in the kids' world. So let's move on to smaller studios. It's three of my favourites, Blue Zoo, Aardman and Studio AKA. Now, the UK has a wonderful tradition of standout preschool, particularly animation, Number Blocks, Paddington, Pip and Posy, getting a little bit older, perhaps Wallace and Gromit, and back to preschool, Studio AKA there made Hey Dougie. And there's little question, in my mind at least, that this country produces some of the finest in the world. And sometimes they develop their own IP, and sometimes they'll be purely a studio for hire. Number Blocks is a very good example with Blue Zoo. They produce Paddington, but they also have generated, if you like, Number Blocks. So they're wearing two hats. Sometimes they might take what's called a back end, where they might reduce their fee a little bit to be part of a project. And then when the products are sold in stores, they'll take a small percentage royalty. And what that does is it takes the risk of the project down a little bit. And it obviously opens up opportunity for these smaller studios to build their portfolio and their standing in the global market. Okay, let's move on to talk about broadcasters. Now, it's easy to think that the day of the broadcaster is over. Actually, nothing could be further from the truth. We're seeing right now a correction in the marketplace where we know from numerous data sources that an IP just can't cut through to the same degree as it did previously unless it is now supported by a linear channel. Now, that doesn't have to be what we've always thought of as a broadcaster, but it is what these big boys and girls do best. And now on to AVOD. That's advertiser-funded video on demand, if you're asking. And of course, YouTube is the one that everybody thinks of. But there has been a huge growth in these platforms as services, like ITVX, Pluto TV. Very important for the overall ecosystem. Let's move on to independent production companies. Where would we be without these businesses? Oftentimes, talented people break away and build their own firms. Daryl McQueen, Terrific TV, and the amazing Magic Light. They either make an IP or they get the rights and often use third parties to actually make the content if they don't have the talent in-house. And so we'll move to SVODs, that's subscription video on demand, the likes of Netflix, Amazon, and Disney. You'll be very aware of the streamer wars, I'm sure. What you might not know is that the children's market is actually the recruiting ground for these players. There is significantly less churn for them if they get the family formula right. Now, another new player are the MCNs, the multi-channel networks. This is Moonbug, Baby Bus, and emergent businesses like Electrify. These businesses own multiple YouTube channels and aggregate audiences to drive revenue. They hoover up IPs and make algorithm busting content that is often made very quickly and at times to a low quality. Now, that low quality tends to be the animation rather than the storytelling. Nonetheless, it's done very, very quickly. It's got out, and actually they change that content according to the viewer research that they're able to track from the back end of their various YouTube consoles. Now, the distributors, these are the salespeople, Jetpack, Cake, Serious Kids. They will take perhaps some of those IPs from maybe the independent production companies, and then they will go to the various markets around the world and they will sell those IPs, that content, to the various channels right around the world. A very important part of the business to keep the wheels moving. And then there's service providers, companies like our own wonderful Jollywise that make the most amazing digital toys for broadcasters and brands around the world. And then Dubbit, who specialize in both research and the creation of Roblox and Fortnite worlds. Really strong businesses doing really innovative things and serving the broader ecosystem. And of course, where would we be without books, publishers, Macmillan, HarperCollins, and small players like Nosy Crow? Very often they will take A ready-made audience has a love for a book. Let's take, I don't know, the Gruffalo as an example. Everyone loves the Gruffalo, a Macmillan book. And of course, Magic Light took hold of that Gruffalo and turned it, I think almost 10 years ago now, into a wonderful Christmas long-form animation. So taking an audience from an established readership of a book and moving them over into digital or filmed or animation content is a definite boon for the industry. And then, of course, our industry itself is supported by a wide range of wonderful bodies. Of course, BAFTA, Screen Skills, PACT, the Children's Media Conference, without whom we wouldn't be here. Of course, the RTS, ANSI, and the Children's Media Foundation, of course, the regulator, Ofcom. All of these players have a really genuine interest in how the children's media world works and help set the agenda for how the industry develops. So that's a little whistle-top tour around the various spokes on our creator ecosystem here. So it is a complex world, but actually once you've been in it a little while, it all becomes quite simple and everybody knows everybody. But let's take a look at how one of these IPs actually gets out to market. How does that flow actually work? How do these bits all come together? Well, let's just take one example. Let's take an independent production company, and this independent production company come up with an idea. It's a great idea. And they take it over to one of those MCNs, like a Moonbug or a Baby Bus. And actually, that multi-channel network takes that content and it plays it out on YouTube, on an SVOD with a broadcaster, and it takes it to licensors that are going to go and sell those rights to third parties to make things. YouTube may play out on YouTube Kids. That SVOD might be Netflix. The broadcaster might be Cartonito, and that licensor could go to Mattel to sell for the toys. They could go to Next for the apparel. They may go to Merlin for that location-based entertainment piece, and they may go to Macmillan for publishing. Now, if you can get all of these things working together, and it's really not a very easy thing to do, but some do it very, very well. If you can get that all working and add just a little bit of fairy dust, then you could end up with a Pepper, a Chase, a Bluey, or a JJ. Thank you very much. I hope you all have a wonderful career in the world of children's media.